Hello, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And we would like to invite you, if you haven't already, to please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you do like what you hear today. We are always so excited to add new members to our community here. And you know what? It is a good episode for you to be sticking your foot in the door here and trying out our podcast for the first time, as this is probably one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting times during the NHL calendar every season. That, of course, being the NHL trade deadline. So, if you're like me personally, for myself, other than obviously like the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I would probably throw opening day in there maybe as well. But other than that, other than the actual hockey that's actually being played on the ice, other than that, this is probably the most exciting time during the NHL season as trade speculation abounds. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we get a flurry of actual deals to talk about. So, sometimes it's a lot of hype brought on really just by the media. But sometimes we actually do see those deals taking place for real. And oh boy, it is a glorious time when these things actually do come to fruition. So for today's show, we are mostly going to focus on the trade deadline as it pertains to the Caps specifically. But we will also give a quick rundown of just, some of the other things that we're looking at in terms of the Caps, like whether it's, whether it's UFAs being moved out or whether it's pieces possibly being brought in, as well as what that means going forward, right, into next season and beyond. So, but yeah, like I said, we'll start with kind of just what's the plan here, right? Like, what is General Manager Brian MacLellan going to do before Friday's trade deadline? The Caps currently sitting outside of a playoff spot. It's a little bit tough to look at, obviously, but there's like 7 teams vying for 2 wildcard spots in the East as well. So not a very good situation to be in. In terms of obviously making the playoffs. So, and with them also still facing, by the way, a daunting injury situation, still no real word on when number 1 defenseman John Carlson might be able to return. So MacLellan, he's already started the process of doing what I think is the smart thing to do here, which is selling off the team's unrestricted free agents, many of whom are coveted right now by contending teams. So the Caps started things off by trading defenseman Dmitry Orlov and right winger Garnet Hathaway to the Boston Bruins in exchange for a boatload of high draft picks, a first, a second, and a third, in fact, plus forward Craig Smith. So that's a move that, sentimentally, it was sad, it was difficult, but it is ultimately a good decision and the right move to make, just with where the team stands currently in the standings. And like I said, with their current injury situation, which has been plaguing them now all season long. So that's what general managers have to do sometimes in order to be successful in both the short and the long term. They have to take the emotion out of the decision-making process, take the sentimentality out of it, and just ask themselves, realistically, if I were not sentimentally attached to this player, then what would be the best move that I could make here in order to help my team now and in the future? So that's what Brian MacLellan ultimately does here. And like in the case of Dmitry Orlov, up until being traded to the Bruins just a few days ago, he had only ever played for one NHL team. He was drafted by the Capitals 14 years ago, and he's been with the organization the entirety of his career since then. So he's played a total of 11 years with the big club, with the Caps. So it is really hard to see a guy like that going out the door. And Orlov himself was very emotional about it, with his agent saying that he was devastated by the trade. The Caps and Orlov, they had both expressed mutual interest in having Orlov spend his entire NHL career with the Capitals, and that was mutually expressed most recently, not even that long ago, as in earlier this season. So when they actually got to talking about a contract extension, however, that seems to be, when things kind of kind of changed, at least on the Capital side of things. So it's been said that Orlov was looking for a 7-year contract extension, and he is 31 years old. So he'll turn 32 pretty soon here during this offseason. And the Caps reportedly didn't want to go past 4 years on an extension, just due to the age factor. So it apparently wasn't really about the money for either party. It was just that Orlov wanted to know, he wanted to have that security. He wanted to know that he was going to get to stay in Washington for 7 more years to presumably finish out his career here. Well, the Caps, like I said, they did not want to commit to what would be, a 37, 38, 39-year-old Orlov at the end of those 7 years, during a phase of the franchise where they would presumably be looking to get a lot younger post Ovechkin and Backstrom. So because the Caps felt that they weren't making enough progress with Orlov's agent in closing the gap on the term of the contract extension, they decided to deal him instead, since it looks like they're not going to be in the playoffs anyway with their injury situation not getting any better anytime soon. And then Hathaway too, it's hard to see him go as well, as he's been here for a number of years now. And he's certainly, a fan favorite for his work on that fourth line alongside of his best friend, Cap center Nick Dowd. But like I said, it was the right move to make, as all signs point towards the Caps not being in the playoffs this season. So they get back a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick from the Bruins, which obviously is quite a haul for 2 rental players who will be UFA at the end of this season, and who Boston likely won't be able to afford to re-sign going forward. The first-round pick, just to break down the full details of the deal here, the first round pick is for this year's draft, 2023, which, as you've probably heard, is widely considered to be one of the best, if not the best, drafts of all time. The second round pick is for 2025. Which could end up being a nice bonus if the Bruins end up falling off in the standings in a couple of years, as their core continues to get older and older. And the third round pick is for 2024. And yeah, like I said, the Caps did get forward Craig Smith in the deal as well, who is also an unrestricted free agent at season's end, so we don't have to worry about the cap hit going forward. But he should help to make the games a bit more watchable for us until the end of the season here. Bruins fans, they really love this guy. Like, from the comments that I have seen from Bruins fans, to a man, to a person, they really didn't want to see this guy go, as they were all saying that he was the hardest worker on their team. I guess he's been a bit snake bit so far this season, but he can usually score. And Bruins fans were saying he's an absolute hound on the puck, which I definitely noticed as well in his first couple of games here with the Caps. So it is also quite possible that the Caps turn right around and flip Craig Smith to another team, a team that's looking for forward help, depth scoring, a reliable veteran forward for the playoffs who can chip in some goals and be an absolute hound on the forecheck and along the walls. So I could definitely see them doing that as well, turning around and flipping him for another asset, another draft pick or prospect that they can then use, to make another deal, acquire a young NHL player, someone like Coyotes stud defenseman Jakob Chychrun. He's been rumored to possibly be going to the Caps, so we'll get to that in just a minute here, though. But yeah, like in the case of Orlov and Hathaway, I could definitely see both of those guys circling back, like returning to the Caps over the offseason as free agents. We know for a fact that Orlov didn't want to go anywhere ever, right? Like, he wanted to play his entire career here. His agent already admitted, like I said, that he was devastated by the trade. He said the Capitals players are his family. Like, this was his family. So now that he sees that the Caps are serious about not giving him the 7-year contract, I could see Orlov and his agent circling back during the summer. And given, that he did really want to stay here, maybe they accept that 4-year contract with the understanding that maybe if you're still playing at a good level at the end of it, maybe then the Caps keep giving you additional 1-year extensions after that, right, to finish out your career. So from the Caps perspective, it just gives you more flexibility to manage the salary cap during those age 37, age 38, age 39, or whatever seasons as well. Like, you don't want to be paying the cap hit as if the guy is still 32 years old, when he's now 39, right? So unless, of course, he's Alex Ovechkin and still scoring 50-plus goals every season, but we already know that Alex Ovechkin is not the typical case. Like, he isn't your typical human being, right? So human beings typically do age, and so Orlov probably will be showing his age when he's 37, 38, etc. So, but yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Orlov coming back home to the Caps over the offseason. I'd probably even say it's more than a 50-50 chance. His wife, she kind of hinted at it on her Instagram page as well, saying that her and her husband, that being Dmitry Orlov, hope to be back with the Caps fans, quote, very soon. And she followed that up with a heart emoji, a winky emoji, and a praying hands emoji. So read into that what you will, but I definitely took that as that they want to turn right around and come right back here in the off season. So Dmitry might not be allowed to say it out loud on his Instagram page, but his wife certainly is. So they probably aren't putting their Washington area house on the market just yet. That's just my guess. So, and then same thing with Hathaway. I could definitely see him returning as a free agent as well. He was also very emotional about the trade, particularly to leave what he called his brothers in the Capitals locker room, including, of course, his best friend on the planet, Caps fourth line center Nick Dowd, who had been Hathaway's regular line mate for the past 4 seasons. So Hathaway and Dowd, they both spoke about the bond that they had formed, becoming best friends on and off of the ice, becoming fathers together, etc. Those bonds, they don't just go away once you get traded, right? And it's for that reason that I could easily see both Orlov and Hathaway returning to the Caps over this upcoming summer. The Caps will also have the roster flexibility and the salary cap space to make it happen, whereas the Bruins, on the other hand, they won't have much of either of those things. So if this were to be the case, if the Caps were to get one or both of Orlov and Hathaway back over the summer, then this would all just be an increasingly tidy piece of business authored by Caps GM Brian McClellan, right? Like, as at that point, if that happens, like at that point, you've then successfully leveraged your UFA assets to get yourselves back a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. And then you get Orlov and or Hathaway right back 4 months later anyway. So it would be a tidy piece of business indeed by Brian McClellan. And as far as the Caps' other pending unrestricted free agents are concerned, there's quite a few of them that teams around the league are reportedly showing quite a bit of interest in, with Lars Eller, Connor Sheary, Nick Jensen, Eric Gustafsson, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk reportedly all garnering interest from multiple teams. Marcus Johansson is another one who would probably have multiple teams interested in what he brings. And so, for the Caps right now, no doubt about it right now, if I'm the Caps, I'm selling. I'm selling off the UFAs for sure. No doubt about it. If they want to come back in the summer at a reasonable cap hit, they can. Well, some of them can. Others we probably aren't interested in bringing back. But for now, the Caps should be selling. They should be cashing in on these expiring contracts, these UFAs, getting assets back for the future. Whether that future is 3 to 5 years down the line or whether that future is 3 days from now, right? If they trade for a guy like Jakob Chychrun, or even if that future is 4 or 5 months from now, if they make a trade for a player over the offseason, it doesn't matter. The point is that you can make yourself rich right now for the future, whether, like I said, whenever that future might be, whether it's tomorrow, a few months from now, a few years from now, you can make yourself rich right now for that future, just by selling off these UFAs who, teams are apparently lining up to overpay for. So the Caps should be stockpiling assets right now, and then they can decide later what they want to do with those assets. So for example, it's being rumored right now that there are multiple teams who are willing to pay a first-round pick for Nick Jensen, Caps defenseman Nick Jensen. The Colorado Avalanche are apparently interested in a package that includes both Nick Jensen plus Lars Eller. The Ottawa Senators are interested in just Nick Jensen on his own. The Toronto Maple Leafs are rumored to have interest in Jensen as well. So there's different ways that you can do this, right? Like you can either package him with Eller, you can send him somewhere on your own, and then you can trade Eller separately. Tons of options, really. The Edmonton Oilers are apparently willing to get fleeced for Erik Gustafsson, with multiple sources now saying that they would be willing to pay a first-round pick to make that happen. TVR, like he could net you probably a high second-round pick as well. With what the Tampa Bay Lightning just paid for Tanner Janot, I'm sure that you could probably get some team to pay a first for Connor Sheary as well. Like he's a well-known playoff performer. So the possibilities are endless right now for the Capitals. And so let's just say, like theoretically, hypothetically, let's just say that, you go and you get a first for Nick Jensen, right? And then you go and you get a first from Edmonton for Erik Gustafsson. You already have your own first-round pick this year, and you already have Boston's first-round pick this year. Now, all of a sudden, you have 4 first-round picks in what's quite possibly the best and strongest draft of all time. Like, that is franchise-altering stuff right there. It opens up a ton of possibilities, like either you can select 4 times yourself in the first round, or you can use 1 or 2 of those picks to go out and acquire young stud players who are going to help your franchise right now, like a 24-year-old Jakob Chychrun, who, as we alluded to earlier, the Caps are reportedly very interested in acquiring. So either way, like whether you select 4 times yourself in the first round or whether you trade 1 or 2 of those picks to acquire young impact NHL players, either way, you're set for the next 10 years. And like on the Jakob Chychrun front, I just want to make my feelings about this very well known before it happens, if it happens. But for me, like I think that this would be just a hell of a superstar move for the Caps to make. Like, I mean, it's the perfect fit for this team, for this franchise right now and for the future. Like Chychrun, he's 24 years old. He's already a stud, right? Like seriously, a stud. Go check out his player impact card when you have a minute. Unreal. He is elite at literally everything that he does out there, all facets of the game. So this would be a huge, huge ad for this Caps team. This would be a huge ad for any team. And I think that Brian McClellan needs to make this happen. Like we know that the Caps are not ever going to enter into a full rebuild while Alex Ovechkin is still on the roster. That's not going to happen. We know that. So given how many injuries they had this season, and to so many key players as well, but they were still right in the thick of the playoff race right up until about a week ago, even with all of those injuries, which it was quite impressive, to be quite honest with you. Like I know that this season might feel like a disappointment when you don't make the playoffs, and it is a disappointment. But I think that we can also, at the same time, we can be disappointed, but we can also be proud of how long guys managed to stay in it with so many key injuries. And so I really do think that it's the right move, like regardless of whether you had promised it to Alex Ovechkin or not. I do think that it is the right move not to tear this thing down yet, and instead to retool on the fly and try to come back again stronger next season. Because like this is still a very good team when everyone's healthy. We've seen it. Multiple occasions, several times we've seen it. And McClellan, he already made a couple of really nice moves in regards to contract extensions, extending a couple of young guys in Dylan Strome and Sonny Milano. So like you're already making the team younger right there, infusing some youth into the core of the team. So, a move like acquiring Jakob Chychrun, who's a young stud defenseman, that would fit right into the retool on the fly plan. As like I said, it would help you right now, and it would also help you 10 years from now. So you can't go wrong with a move like that. Not only because obviously he's such an elite player, but also because, like I said, he's not 30 plus years old when you're acquiring him. He's still just 24. So, and Chychrun, by the way, he still has 2 more seasons after this one still left on his contract, which is at a very bargain rate of just $4.6 million per season. So that is a microscopic cap hit for a player of this caliber, and making this trade would give you the ability to build a hell of a defensive core around a top pairing of Chychrun and John Carlson and still have money left over to spare. In fact, like if you were to, I was just thinking about this the other day, but if you were to trade Anthony Mantha over the offseason, like many predict that the Caps will do, then you could easily afford to have Chychrun and still bring back Dmitry Orlov over the summer. So, like, think about that for a second. Like, how would that defensive lineup look? I'm frothing at the mouth just thinking about it. And as I said, like, Chychrun is elite at literally everything he does. He's a huge presence on the ice at 6'2" and 220 pounds. He's a minute-munching top-pairing defenseman, routinely playing over 25 minutes a game against the opposition's top players. He's almost a point-per-game player this season, which is impressive for a defenseman under any circumstance, but especially when routinely playing against the opposition's top players, then it becomes even more impressive. And he's somehow managed, this is crazy, but he has somehow managed to be a +8 on a truly terrible Coyotes team. So like that's a crazy stat to me, to be +8 on that Coyotes team. So like I said, all in all, this would be an absolutely massive add for any team that gets him. So hopefully it will indeed be the Caps, as the rumors are indicating at this point. So to sum up for today, sell, and go get Jakob Chychrun. If they can do that, it will be totally worth it to miss the playoffs this season, because they will have a way better team next season and beyond, and an actual shot at winning another Stanley Cup. So that's what I'm hoping for. Let me know in the comments what you guys are hoping for as we approach the March 3rd trade deadline. It should be a very interesting week, hopefully an exciting week for all of us Caps fans. But for now, that is going to be all for us for today. I did want to thank you all again so much for listening. We really do appreciate having all of you here. It's so much fun for me to be doing this show. And it's even more fun that so many people are tuning into it now. I'm so very grateful. So until next time, babes, thank you all so much again for being here. We will chat after the trade deadline. At that point, I'm sure that we'll probably have a lot more to talk about, like I said, if the rumors are true. So as always, win or lose, let's go Caps, baby.